Okay, so I'm going to be talking about Macbeth today. This video is going to be for the freshman who needs some help with Macbeth. Okay, so these are the units that you need to be doing if you didn't already know. If you're a freshman, you need to be doing units 1, 2, and 4. And we're not going to worry about the other ones. So this is a little summary of Macbeth, and I'll be trying to use the board a little bit to help you out with that. And I'm carrying my iPad around with me instead of sitting it down, because when I sit it down, my voice gets faint if I get too far away. So most of the time, when you think about the word protagonist, yep, okay. You usually think of a good guy, and that's usually true. The protagonist usually equals the good guy, and antagonist usually equals a bad guy. But in the Scottish play, or Macbeth, the protagonist, who is Macbeth, the main character, is a bad guy. And the reason and also his wife, she's just as bad, if not worse than him. They're like Bonnie and Clyde. They're just bad. So here is the story. Macbeth and his friend I'm trying to remember his friend's name. Anyway, he and his friend are walking home from a war. And as they're walking home from a war, they're just minding their own business, and they meet 3 witches on the road, and they're like, whoa, this is weird. And these 3 witches predict about Macbeth that he will become king, that he's currently the thane of a certain area, and then he's going to be thane of another place. They predict that, and he doesn't even know it's happened yet, although the king does. And they predict he's going to be king as well. And then they go to his friend. I'm still trying to remember his friend's name. And they say, oh, but you're going to be the father, the ancestor of kings. And Banquo. Okay, Banquo is his friend's name. And they make these predictions about Macbeth and Banquo. And Macbeth's all, wow, that's weird that I'm going to be king, but you're going to be the ancestor of kings. How weird. And then then these witches, then the witches just disappear. And then he writes a letter to his wife about this weird encounter, and she decides something, because there's something wrong with this woman, and I'm not sure what it is, but there's something very, very wrong with her. And he just goes along with everything she says, and for some reason. And she decides that in order for him to become king, instead of just sitting around, let's see. I'm going to go back just a little bit. Okay, so when they first meet the witches hail him as Thane of Glamis, which he is, and then Thane of Cawdor, which he is not yet. And then later when he meets up with the king says, oh, you're Thane of Cawdor now. And Macbeth's all, oh, there must be something to what the witches say. And so that gets his mind going. And then his wife decides, oh, well, in order for you to become king, we need to kill the king. And Macbeth's thinking, well, I became Thane of Cawdor just sitting around and not doing anything. Maybe I could become king by just sitting around and not doing anything. And she's all, nah, dog. Yeah, need to kill the king. And he's like, I really don't want to kill the king. And he's like, you got to. And he's like, yes, ma'am. And so the king, trusting Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, goes to Macbeth's castle to stay the night, and Lady Macbeth says, this is when we're going to kill him. And he's like, I really don't want to kill the king, he's kind of nice. And she's all, shut up. He's like, yes, ma'am. And so they go to kill the king, and while the king's sleeping, and he sees this dagger floating in the middle of the air in front of him, and I don't know if he's hallucinating or if he actually sees a dagger that was put there by the witches, but then he goes in and he kills the king in his sleep, and his wife takes the knives from him and smears the blood all over the guards that she had gotten drunk. And then the next day, they act all sad and unhappy. Oh no, the king is dead, let's act sad. And then Macbeth, in a pretend rage of righteous indignation, kills the two guards. And then the king's sons, they get kind of nervous, and they're like, we're going to get blamed for our dad dying. And so let's separate, let's go in different directions, and hopefully we won't get blamed and executed for something we did not do. So they do that. And then let's see. And then there's a guy named MacBeth, and I'll get to him in a minute. And he's somebody that the witches, when Macbeth goes to see the witches again, they warn him that he should be wary of this guy. And but in the meantime, Macbeth gets very nervous about Banquo, because Banquo was with him when the witches made their prediction. And he's like, oh, Banquo was a witness to the witches telling me this. And so he's going to think some stuff now that the king is dead. I need to take Banquo out. And in order to keep the prediction that the witches made of Banquo from happening, not only am I going to kill Banquo, I'm going to kill his kid Fleance too. And so Banquo and Fleance are coming to a dinner that Macbeth is hosting. And Macbeth has hired some murderers to take Banquo and Fleance out so that Banquo's side of the witch's prediction won't happen. So they go out and they ambush Banquo and his son, but Banquo fights the bad guys, and he's like, run, Fleance, run, get away, get away. And Fleance runs and gets away. And so Fleance survives even though Banquo is killed. And so the robbers, the murderers come and report to Macbeth that they only killed Banquo, and he's like, oh no, the prediction still might come true. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. And so he's worried because Fleance got away. And he after the murderers report to him, he sees Banquo's ghost wandering around the dinner, and he starts going all crazy because he sees Banquo's ghost. And Lady Macbeth is like, she says to the other people who are at the dinner, you guys probably should leave because he's kind of going crazy, and he's done this since he was a kid. And so everybody else leaves the dinner because Macbeth's all, because he sees Banquo's ghost. And then Macbeth goes to see the witches because he's really worried about how things are going to play out for him. And they tell him that there are some things you need to be very worried about, Macbeth. Let's see. So he says, first of all, the witches say, Macbeth, you don't need to worry about ever being killed by any person born of a woman. And Macbeth's like, that's everybody on the planet. But then they also said, Macbeth, you need to be worried about Macduff. And Macbeth's okay, but he probably had a mom, because I don't think he came out of a tree. So, okay, I'm worried about him, but not really. And then they said, also, you don't need to worry about anything at all until Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane, your castle. And he's like, okay, trees don't grow very fast, so if the woods actually grow up to my castle, that will be long after I'm dead, so I don't need to worry about that either. So I'm not really going to worry about anything. And so then there's this other scene, this next scene, which is really sad. Macbeth decided that because he needs to be worried about Macduff, that he's going to kill Macduff's family, which doesn't make any sense to me, because that would just make him mad. And he does. Anyway, he sends people to Macduff's castle, and they kill Lady Macduff and all of Macduff's kids. And that's a really sad scene. But then, of course, when Macduff finds out that this has happened to his family, he gets really mad. And he's like, I am going to get Macbeth. I am going to get him. I am going to get him. I'm going to get him because he killed my family. And so, anyway, he decides that. And then we go back to the castle, and there is a doctor and a serving woman who are watching Lady Macbeth wandering around with a candle, and she's trying to scrub her hands, and she's like, oh, I've got blood all over my hands. I can't get it off. They can see no blood on her hands. But apparently in her mind she can, because she's a crazy person. And she's made all the more crazy by her part in killing the king, who was an innocent person. And then we go to Macbeth himself, who is, let's see, anyway, the doctor reports to Macbeth that Lady Macbeth's going on about stuff, and he's like, okay, just make her better. And the doctor's like, I can't. He's like, and Macbeth's like, just make her better. And the doctor's like, I'm just going to throw my hands in the air. And he is done with everything. And then Macbeth, he's getting ready to fight all of the antagonists, who are in this case the good guys. Remember, because in Macbeth, it's flip-flopped. The protagonist is bad, the antagonists are good. And he's getting ready to fight, and the report comes to him that Lady Macbeth is dead. Possibly by suicide, though the story never says this. And then after he finds out that she's dead, he makes a soliloquy, meaning he's talking to himself. Nobody else but the audience can hear. And he says, she should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays of lighted fools awaited dusty death. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour on the stage and is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury signifying nothing. And then he goes on getting ready to fight. And then a messenger comes to him and he says, sir, I'm not sure how to tell you this, but it kind of looks like Birnam Wood is like walking up the hill to Dunsinane. And Macbeth's all, ouch! And says a lot of words that he probably shouldn't, but he's a bad guy, so he's going to say those words. And he realizes that the predictions are starting to come true. And the reason why it looks like Birnam Wood is coming to Dunsinane is because the antagonists, the good guys, decided that what they were going to do to hide their numbers was to chop down some branches of the trees in Birnam Wood and hold them above their heads to disguise their numbers. And so they do that. And so he's like, oh no, this part of the prediction's coming true. And then they start the fighting, and Macbeth kills some people, but then Macduff comes along, and he's like, I'm going to fight you, and Macbeth's all, okay, whatever, I can just kill you, because I had this prediction that I wouldn't be beaten by anybody that's born of a woman. And Macduff says, ha, joke's on you, because guess what? My mom had a C-section, so I wasn't exactly born out of her. Ha! And Macbeth's all... But then they fight, and Macduff kills Macbeth. And then the story ends, and the crown goes back to the kids to whom it rightfully belongs. And we're to understand, apparently, that France goes on to have descendants that join the royal family, and that's Macbeth. And the good guys won, who are the antagonists.